Hello,
Hi, Samir.
how are you?
Doing good, doing good. How are you?
Wonderful. The first episode of Leading with Clarity podcast.
Congratulations.
Thank you. A long time coming.
Yes. We are live, are we?
We are live right now. Do we have any confirmation from someone who is listening in?
No, all I see is the red icon saying we are live.
You see it here. Let me confirm it because this has happened before.
Yes, we are live.
We are live. Wonderful. So, thank you once again, Jenson, for jumping in on this podcast. This is uh, a passion project of mine, Leading with Clarity. You know this. It's been a passion for quite some time, a few years right now. We've been working on the clarity game, and everything. And the whole objective of today's podcast, or the mission with this, is to help managers who are seeking to become better leaders, right? And I will dive right in with my first question because I have this poster that you have shared earlier, right? The single most important responsibility I have as a leader is to hold multiple perspectives. The more perspectives I bring to the situation, the clearer my decisions become. My first question to you
Yes.
is, where is this coming from? Where is this deep hunger for multiple perspectives coming from?
First of all, Samir, congratulations on this journey. Helping managers become better leaders it's a good mission you are on. And now coming to the question, this is coming from my experience, things that I have realized or from the mistakes I've made. So what we do is we are a packaging consulting company. We work with companies when they want to start a new factory. We also work with SMEs when they want to grow their business and help them go IPO, or at least IPO ready. Yeah. So there are times where we have situations where the client is clueless, and we have to guide them, or we have to take decisions on their behalf. And at that point we may not have the entire picture also, like where they are in terms of business, what their resources are, and all of that. And one of the things we do is we ask them, what would they do given a certain situation. Now, and that input often, when we ask the individuals, not the business leader themselves, but the managers or the ground level professionals in the company, uh, they would see things that we often miss out. Yeah, and that insight, that information helps us in a big way in building strategy. So that is something that I've realized. So whenever I'm not in a situation to take decisions, I ask them what would they do, giving a particular context. I know we don't give a very complex scenario, but that's generally how the habit is developed.
So, what I'm hearing you say is the context is always already with them, the perspectives are with them. Then, what are you bringing to the table when they are looking for guidance from you if
Yeah.
they already have these perspectives with them?
So the context is never in place, because everyone has a different understanding of what the context is generally. And what we do is we build a context that is easy to understand, easy to grasp, depending on where you are in the picture or where you are in the decision making scenario. Now, in strategy, we have something called as the three perspectives. Yeah, this is something I've learned from my mentor. We have the eagle's view, the lion's view, and the ant's view. And the eagle's view is like the big direction, the big vision, and that is generally where the higher management is involved in. But the lion's view is where we look into the actions, the decisions, the efforts, and there that is where we need insights from those who are at the lion's view level, because the vision may be something, but executing the vision will have a different set of challenges. and trying to understand that. So we have to build the context from that point, because those at the Lions level may not be able to give or understand the context at an Eagles view. So we have to change context to a different level. So knowing how to change context at various levels will give us relevant insights. That's been my experience. At least that is what has worked for us in the projects we do.
Interesting, very interesting. So just to build on that question is over here, how do you practically do that when stakes are high and time is short, So you have to actually bring in perspective, you have to collect and gather information. As a leader, you have to be the one who is putting all these, let's say, Lego pieces, right? I'm looking at this as like Lego pieces where there are so many pieces moving and they have all the pieces with them, but they don't know how to assemble it into in the right immediate with the larger picture. So
yeah, so that's a good question, and this is something we face often, because a big part of what we've experienced is many of the clients take decisions last minute, and then they want it to quick, which is often not practically possible. But what works is we look at least effort, highest impact kind of matrices. There are a lot of tools that work there. We refer to those kind of tools, one. But most importantly, we keep reminding ourselves what matters most. I mean, a lot of things can be measured, but most of things may not actually matter. Just because you can measure it does not mean you should measure it. So we keep reminding ourselves where the focus is. What is that one goal that we want to achieve? And based on that, we negate everything else. We just focus on what matters most, especially when time is short and the urgency is quite high.
you brought on a very interesting topic about the effort impact matrix, and you talked about how least effort, high impact is the sweet spot that you're looking for. Uh, how does one balance between, or what is your definition of effort, and how does one determine whether the effort is that they're
Least
putting
or
is too much or right, just enough, or too little?
yeah, so that's again another good question. Now the thing is, the funny thing with the effort impact matrix is the best scenario is to get into the least effort high impact block, right? But you cannot reach there unless you go to the high effort high impact block. And the journey to the least is through the high, because the more effort you do, the easier it becomes. The less
Why does it become easier? Why does it
um,
become easier?
because consistency and discipline.
Hmm.
You know what you're doing, and you know why you're doing. So that alignment comes into play over time. Now, one of the things we have when it comes to execution is I do not know if you've heard of the this book, The Four Disciplines of Execution. So that is a book that I really enjoy, and the lessons from that book is quite it's something we apply in our projects. The results is what matters, yeah, but we don't measure the results, we measure the efforts. So when it comes to knowing the impact, we can only know the impact of it when it is too late, good or bad, right? But what we can actually measure is the effort. So have a system in place where we figure out what efforts are required to achieve something and keep measuring it. That works. Even when we doubt, we keep doing it, and that is it's like a default.
Hmm.
So certain efforts have to be default. Yeah.
But I like what you just said about when you know your why and what is the purpose of you doing it, then you start building efficiency gains, or you start doing things much more better. And therefore, and I think if you don't have that, the counter is that if you don't have that, you will continue to be in the high effort, high impact, right?
No, you would actually be in the high effort, low impact.
Hmm.
Man, that is the worst place to be, because you would keep doing it. You would think you're doing a lot of things, but in the end, there is no progress. In the end, there is no direction. It is like we will be in a whirlwind.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I think, or something that I've seen, the most effective projects. One thing is very clear: we decide what the outcome is going to be, what the expected outcome is. So we start from there.
How often do you do this exercise?
Initially, when we take on a project, we decide that. Oh, so even so let me talk internally then. I mean, okay, with the clients, it is every beginning of every project we do it, but internally, we review our expected outcome at the beginning of the term or beginning of the year, whenever we look at, and then we revisit it once a month to see are we on the right direction or not. Because there will be a lot of things that come our way that are not planned, and we have to address that. We have to put down the fire that comes in the business. But if we keep ourselves too busy putting down the fire, then we will not have time to make sure the fire never comes again. So
Yeah.
we review this once a month as a cadence. But yeah, and the beginning of the year. This is the routine. This is the frequency we follow. But the efforts that we measure, it is on a daily and a weekly basis.
And this is a very common trait among a lot of managers, right? They keep saying we are always firefighting.
Yeah, and that is actually that comes from a lack of clarity and a lack of alignment within the organizations.
They say we don't have time to sit for strategy. We don't have time for actually planning. There is so much to do, and our bosses or our leaders are constantly demanding from us.
Yeah.
What is a fix for this? As you can't change your boss, you can't change the way they behave or navigate. So as a manager, uh, what would you recommend someone who is going through this constant barrage of getting so many things on their plate on a day-to-day basis where they have to
Um,
firefight?
so there are things that are in one's control, and then there are things that are not in one's control. Changing your boss is not in your control. But what is in your control is getting clarity on the objectives that you have to achieve for the year. So the company achieves the company's goals for the year. So as the manager, I think that is perhaps the first step. Know where the company is headed and know where your contribution is towards that journey. And once you know that, then you figure out how can you contribute, how can you make your team also be part of it, and getting your department to do that part maybe is what you can do as a manager.
Hmm.
But alignment. I mean, business is all about alignment. Alignment with the team. Alignment with the hierarchy within the organization. Alignment with the suppliers. Alignment with the customers. Alignment with the investors. That's something I've learned from some of my good clients who've done really well in business. Um, Business is alignment. You don't have alignment, everything else falls apart.
Coming to that, where you're talking about alignment, where are the areas or which are the contexts where you have applied leadership? You know, in which context? I know you have, in your journey, you have been in Kenya, you have been here, you have been, uh, I think, outside Dubai and
Mhm.
Kenya. Have you been in any other country where you're working, or are these the
Uh,
early markets?
so I've been residents in both these places, but I've traveled quite a few places and I've done projects in a lot of places. Yeah, but I've these are the two places where I've actually been a resident. Stayed there for a long time,
So,
and
being a resident, but also bringing the lens of being a leader, were you a
yeah,
leader in these two markets as well?
I didn't understand. What do you
So,
mean?
did you play the role of a leader for your
Yes,
people or for organizations or
yes,
anything? Did you
yes.
play? You did?
Yes, yes, yes. So
Yes.
I've played the role of a leader in several of these markets. Now, one thing, so it's not just about leadership. For me, the way I see it is that it's also building. It's the kind of character you want to build within you, right? It's kind of a person you want to be, and there. What has worked for me is asking, getting clarity on what the outcome is. So we always start with asking outcome based questions. Where do we want to go? Once we know where we want to go, we then figure out where we are today, and then we find out the gap. So those are the steps. Those are the frameworks that I have applied that have worked for me. Now, to give an example, it's largely gained with the projects we do. We have this particular case of a client where they wanted to expand. They wanted to expand their business, yeah, but they did not know which area to get into, and they had it was a part of a big group. They are part of a big group, and they were ready to put in the money, but they wanted the business sets to give them a direction. Now, what happens often is if you don't have the eagle's view, the lion's view is to go in the direction of what has already been working. And just because something has been working now, in terms of innovation or strategy, it is not necessary that it will continue working in the future, because the markets will change, the competition increases. So that is where we came in, and it was not part of our scope. But we realized that they were not able to do it on their own. Then we stepped in, though it was not part of our scope. We offered to take on that role and give them guidance. So it is a risk as a consultant. What we take is a risk, right?
So,
But then that, yeah. Good.
so here is my question for exactly that what you're saying right now. As a consultant, how do you balance adapting to the client's culture versus challenging it for the better? How do you balance that?
I don't see how we can balance it. What we can only look at is to see how aligned we can get on any particular objective that is in front of us. There's no point in trying to, at least I don't see the point in putting the efforts in trying to balance both of them. Because if they are not aligned, then we have got the wrong objective in front of us. So that is
Or,
kind of,
or we can say by aligning, you balance, right?
yeah, we can say by aligning, we balance. Yeah. It can be put that way. That
So,
way to.
how do you know you have created alignment?
That is actually a good question. So initially, when we start, so it begins from how we start off a project or how we start off an engagement with the client. So we start with desired outcome, right? Where do they want to go, and then we look at where we are now. So that these are the two things that we figure out first. Now the gap in many cases is not small, because if it was small, they would not need us. It is a no, they would reach naturally. They would cover the gap naturally. So since the gap is big, is when we ask them why do they want to go to this particular position, or what do they want to reach this particular point, and that gives us a lot of insight on what their values are, what do they prioritize, how do they take decisions, because all said and done, we've seen including myself, we take decisions emotionally and try to justify it logically. That is usually what happens. But what drives our emotional decisions are the value systems that we have. So once the values are aligned, or at least we have a lot of overlap in terms of the value systems, the rest will fall in place. But if the value system isn't aligned, then it becomes.
Can you give an
Then
example of values being aligned?
So, for example, let us say, so for us, something that is, so at Carbon, we have four core values that we follow. That is respect, trust, transparency, and teamwork. Now, we're not saying everybody should have the same value system, right? But a lot of it would reflect uh, closely to it. Say, for example, if the client hierarchy, if respect is not part of the culture, if it is more fear driven, and if everyone takes decisions to save their own seat, it is the organization that suffers in the end, right? And there is nothing we can do. We are consultants, we are not miracle workers. so
Hmm.
so there it is a red flag for us, and we usually say no, this is not something we can do. We try to not take on projects that are not aligned. So that is just an example, and we have a lot of cases like this.
All right. So here's another one. Can you share a project or a decision that didn't go as planned and how it shaped your leadership going forward? You as an individual,
Yeah.
you implemented something, you tried something. It can be from your workplace, it can be from your nonprofit engagements that
Yeah.
you have been a part of, any of
Yeah.
those initiatives where you were leading a group of people and you tried something and it didn't go as planned. And
Yes.
then that shaped fundamentally how you started leading post that.
So I'll give you the example of experience I've had in one of the non-profits I've been part of. because in profit organization you can hold people accountable, and there is a punishment reward system. Non-profit says nothing, everyone is volunteer, right? So it becomes much more challenging over there. So during my term as area director at Toastmasters, I had planned a few things that I had to roll out as part of my responsibility and leadership position. But again, and I had a core team also. My core team was pretty good. They were aggressive, they were creative, they were willing to put in the effort. But again, what happens is as we progress, a lot of things happen in life, and something that is a community contribution may not be on top of priority for the team members. And when that happens, the team kind of pulls out. They are not in a position to contribute. So I had a situation where one of the campaigns that we had planned, we launched it, but we could not continue for long. And when that happened, it fell halfway through. It died down halfway. Um, of course, I mean there was nothing at stake from that point. There was the loss. No, there was the loss wasn't there. But a big lesson that it taught me was, uh, I mean, sometimes things are not in your control, and if you know what are things that are not in your control, just have clarity on those aspects in advance. Have that included in your planning phase, because that was something I never realized. I never included in my planning phase. I thought everything would go as planned. Small deviations here and there, we could probably do in some extra effort, and we can achieve what we set out to achieve. But it did not happen. Yes, so have clarity on what is in your control and what is not in your control. And things will happen that are not in your control. And there's nothing you can do about it. Excuse me. In such situations, accept it and move on.
Uh,
Minimize damage control. Please go.
Minimize damage control. When you say some things don't work, how do you choose whether to walk away or whether to persist? As a leader, as someone who is leading a group of people, how do you choose or decide? Because you would have chosen the task initially with the impact in mind, with the objective in mind, but
Yeah,
along the way, there are things that you will decide to drop and some
yeah,
you will decide to pursue. How do
yeah.
you choose between these two?
So, any task or any objective, there are stakeholders involved in it, right? So, and certain stakeholders have a more direct impact on achieving the objective. Now, and then certain incidents happen that are unforeseen, or it happens out of your control. There's nothing much you can do. The COVID, for example. Now, when things like COVID happen, there's nothing much. You just have to pivot, because your initial objective was created for a different context, and the context changes. We have to go back to the drawing board. But when that is not the case, when you have certain stakeholders whose contribution has a bigger impact on the outcome, when there is misalignment there, first we try and see how can we get the alignment back, in the sense, or do we have to change, or do we have to make them change, whatever it is. Right? There will be some reason for whatever the misalignment, whatever is the cause for the misalignment. When that does not happen, and then you see, can those stakeholders be replaceable? Is that something that you can do to achieve the objective? And can they be replaced? Can you put in somebody else? When none of that happens, then there is no point fighting it. So you then so before this, we also try to figure out why the misalignment happened, right? So there may be a reason for it. Maybe the objective was wrong, or maybe we're going the wrong direction. Something that is not working. But if that is not the case, we just feel if it is, you know, if it is the lack of perspective from either sides, then we see how to change that. Otherwise, we try to find alignment somewhere, because sometimes objectives may not be right. The objectives have to change.
Hmm.
And as the context changes, as the markets change, situations change.
How are you creating a distinction between managers and leaders?
I don't want to go with any definitions as such. I mean, I mean, everyone can be a leader, and everyone, and whether you are, I mean, it does not matter where you are, right? Leadership is more about the kind of person you want to be. A manager is more of a designation you're given,
Okay.
and that's how I would put it.
So when you have a team and you start the journey, you are not the leader at the beginning, right? You become the leader by the end of the term. Would you say that is a fact? You're being a
No,
manager
so
at the beginning.
you don't aim to be a leader. You do what you have to do. You do what it takes to get things done, right? I mean, find ways to solve the problems. I mean, leadership is not for you to decide whether you are a leader or not. It is the people around you that would see you as a leader.
But you're
So
saying not to have that aspiration as well.
yes, yes, because aspire not to. So okay, this this can be taken in the this can be misleading if when I put it this way. But aspire to be someone dependable. Aspire to be someone who people can reach out to when they are curious. I mean, or aspire to be someone who they can rely on. Aspire to be a person of integrity. I mean, there are so many things. So aspire to be a better person, right? Because leader is a quite a broad term, right? And it is uh, so. What happens is now why I say this is when we try to be a leader, at least in my experience, whenever I try to become a leader, I look at what works, what may have worked for somebody else. It may not necessarily work for me. So there is no textbook definition or textbook formula to be a better leader. You might do it, but you might not have alignment within you. And if you don't have alignment within you, it won't sustain for long. So just be a person who people can rely on, and be a person of integrity, and that I think is the best way to put it. You deliver what you claim or
So
what you
are you
promise.
saying everyone who people can rely on and who people can depend on are leaders?
There is a reason people reach out to such people, right? I mean, in the sense, uh, I think well, every leader will be somebody we can rely on. Let me put it that way. Every person that we see as a leader is someone who we can rely on.
Hmm.
I mean, otherwise, we would not have the respect or the following, towards that leader. Right? The other thing is also, if we want to really talk about just how to be a good leader, I would say be a good follower first. A good
Hmm.
follower will always be a great leader.
Okay. There's another one. Do you remember the first time you felt like a true leader, not just as a manager or an expert?
Uh, the first time, right? Mm, no, it's difficult. I mean, I would probably go to my school days.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably go to my school days. So
What happened?
yeah, so recently I'll tell you something that happened recently. Recently, I was actually fortunate enough to be invited to my son's school for a talk. Yeah, and the event was the installation of the student council body. And my son is in sixth grade, and he was elected as a member of the environment committee there in the school. So when I went there, the teachers wanted me to give a few words to the students to inspire them, right? And at that point, I did not know what to say. But when I went on stage and I saw them, I remembered my 10th grade. So when I was in 10th grade, I was the captain of the Blue House. And when I became the captain of the Blue House, all my teachers they came to me, "Oh, Jensen, congratulations! You have to be a good leader. You have to be a good leader." Like, yes, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. I'll be a good leader. You know how how I would how we are kids, right? So, and I would say yes to it, right? But then I I did not know what it meant to actually be a good leader. Do I be strict? Do I be aggressive? Do I enforce the rules? What does it mean to be a good leader? I had no idea. But I had my favorite teacher. She taught me maths. Her name was Joan. So I went and asked her, "Ma'am, what does it mean to be a good leader? And how do I become a good leader?" And she likes to play around. She's like, okay, just, I'll tell you, I have a secret formula, to be a good leader. I remember that, after all these years, because of the way she presented it to me. And she said the formula is ACE. And I told this to the students at my son's school also. So ACE is like, what is the ACE? ACE, right? So what does ACE stand for? A is ask with curiosity. So perhaps that's the first thing you do. You ask with curiosity. You be curious enough to understand the other person's perspective. Listen, learn. Keep asking. Then when you ask, you get some insights. Then we go to C. Now C is care with kindness. Care with kindness. Yeah. So care with kindness is so that was a big doubt I had, right? So as a leader, I could my understanding of leader was borderline bully. You have to be strict. You have to, but when she brought in C, yeah, enforce, right? But when she brought in C, care with kindness, okay, so that was a big direction for me, and because that was a big doubt that was playing in my mind. So I have to ask and I have to be kind. These were the two things I've done. And then finally, E was execute with courage. So there are things that we have in our mind that we want to do, but we will have roadblocks. We will have a lot of self-doubt creeps in the most. That is the biggest roadblock. After self-doubt, we have the people around us that will keep triggering it. But that is where we need courage. Yeah. So that is what I told the students at my son's school also. So ACE is a formula that would actually help you become a person who people can depend on.
How did your term end as a Blue House captain?
What is what is that?
How did your term end as a Blue House captain? Did you apply ACE?
I applied ACE, not always. There were times I had to be reminded of it at that point, but the whole leadership perspective dawned on me much later when I look back. At that point, we are figuring out a lot of things, a lot of we get influenced by a lot of things, by the friend circle, by the people around us, by things that happen. But that lesson stayed with me. That formula stayed, and it actually kind of bloomed at a much later stage.
When did it bloom? Do you remember
I would
when it
say I
really
would say during my college days. So I was not in leadership roles during my college days. I was quite behind the scenes. Yeah? I was not active, but there were some incidents where I actually had the courage to face. In the sense, when things went wrong, I suddenly realized that though I'm afraid, I'm ready to face it. So that is when I discovered, okay, this is what courage actually feels like. So
So leadership is not really a role; it's a mindset, right?
it is a mindset. Yeah. Thank you for saying that, Sumesh. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, I think
Right.
that is the best way to put it. Leadership is a mindset. Yeah. Because I don't want to label anyone as a leader. It is a journey. You reach, you become, you end up, it is what happens.
You end up, or you go through the journey of being a leader when you apply ACE, like you said. Every
Yes,
single
yes,
day, every single moment, you're applying the
yeah,
principles of ACE.
yes.
Asking with
Ace one,
curiosity, caring with
yeah,
kindness, and executing with courage. I like
courage,
that.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
One question over here, which is, how do you ensure your systems work even when you're not in the room? What role does clarity play in that handoff? So as
Oh,
leaders,
yeah, yeah, correct. Yeah,
yeah,
good. As leaders,
as leaders, we are not always in the room. We are always not influencing or directing or giving instructions. As leaders, we bring out the essence of the impact that we want to create, and then we walk out of it, and then the rest have to be done by the team.
yeah.
So how do you ensure that?
We measure what matters the most. So something that I've said earlier, something that we constantly apply in our business internally and externally. The desired outcome is the direction, but we measure the effort. We don't measure the results. So if you have a system in place that constantly measures the efforts, you will know that you are on the right track or you are deviating. Yeah? So that feedback system is necessary.
Is it not possible to measure both instead of just one? Instead of measuring only effort, why not measure effort and impact?
So the thing is, by the time we measure the results, it is too late to make changes because the results always happen later, right? So and there is no way we cannot measure the results. Results is easier to measure. It is the most easiest thing to see. So that usually happens by default. But the effort is where we have seen the biggest gaps are, and it is consistent small efforts that actually has the biggest impact. So keep measuring that. Have an eye for measuring the effort.
Hmm.
To give an example, so this is a story I've heard from my mentor Joysha. So he has this friend who has a big construction business, and it's a multi-billion-dollar business, yeah. But and as a CEO, he can't measure a lot of things. He's got people to do that, but how does he know if the business is on the right direction or not? I'm looking at P&L statements every week, every month is meaningless because in the construction business, you have to build. It takes 3, 4 years to build, and then after that is when the sales come. But what he does is quite interesting, right? And that gives a lot of perspective. He measures just two things. Yeah, what he measures is the daily progress of how much the construction is progressing. It has to progress a certain percentage every day. Is that happening every day? Is that happened today? Did it happen yesterday? Is it happening tomorrow? Every day measure the progress of construction that happens. And the other thing is every day measure the number of sales visits the sales team has done. Whether they close it or not is irrelevant. He's not worried about them closing it. Have they visited the people? Have they gotten the new bookings or whatever it is? So these are the two things he measures. Because if they keep visiting, the results will happen.
My follow-up question to you is this: for each business or each manager, it is different. There are so many KPIs or metrics that they can actually measure. How do they decide which effort to measure?
It depends on the objective. So what do you want to achieve? So I mean, maybe you may want to achieve 10 objectives. Focus on the top three with the biggest impact, or focus on the top one with the biggest impact.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the conversation we had the other day. You were telling me about Sundar Pichai. And there
Yeah.
are a lot of capable talents at Google, but Sundar Pichai worked on three of the most impactful projects in Google. So as a manager, everyone has a choice. They will be given a lot of tasks, but focus on the ones that have the biggest impact to the organization.
Hmm. My last question perhaps is this: many managers today feel stuck, reactive, or unseen. What's one powerful shift they can make starting this week? We talked about tiny, brave steps, efforts, measuring effort. If they're focused on efforts and if this is what they have to really shift, what do you think as managers within organizations who are all aspiring to one day become a leader, have a seat at the table where they can make decisions and work on strategy? Because that is where the biggest impact is in an organization, right? As a leader, you have a seat at the table that you're able to influence the direction of the organization.
If you ask me, I would say don't pursue that. Because you don't. Excuse me. How others perceive us is seldom in our control. What is in our control is how well we can master what we do. So take it as a journey of mastery more than a journey of reaching somewhere. Whether you reach there or not, you keep becoming a better person. You keep becoming better at what you do, and slowly the results will fall in place.
But are you saying there should be no North Star towards which you're becoming better?
Yes, that should be North Star. I mean,
So,
that is where we talk of.
what should be the North Star? If the North Star is to become a leader who can influence and impact.
So what I mean when I say that is don't let the organization be your context. Let your life be the context. Become a better person in life, not just a better manager or a better leader in an organization. That will
Mm.
happen. that is the consequence that happens. But aim at applying the principles not just at the workplace but everywhere. I mean, let that be the way you are. I mean, that is the best way to live life. Better opportunities may come, when we are really good at what we do.
Wonderful, Jensen. I think we'll wrap up with that note. Let us all
Thank you so much.
pursue to become better individuals. I myself am constantly pursuing that. That has been my journey and continues to be my journey. And I hope everyone who's listening also. Any closing remarks before you want to wrap up this conversation?
Well, it's a good initiative. It's a great initiative that you're doing, Sumit, because I remember when I was employed many years ago, I also lacked the perspective of the Eagles view. And without that perspective, we are in a whirlwind. But guidance like this, this is like you are mentoring at scale. This guidance like this gives more perspective to managers out there, and that will help them get more clarity. And I'm confident. I'm pretty certain about that. So it's a great initiative. Congratulations, and I hope this continues.
Thank you. Thank you. And look forward to having more conversations with you as well.
Yeah,
Thank you
all
for
right.
bringing different perspectives.
Thank
Where we
you.
started off with perspectives, we end with perspectives.
Yeah.
Thank
You
you.
take care. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.